Welcome back to Heart with me, Shakti Sundari. We're here in beautiful Bali and just about to speak to two incredible people, Leslie Salmon Jones and Jeff Jones, a dynamic couple who together founded and co-create Afro Flow Yoga. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
I'm really happy that we finally got to meet after taking your class. At the Bali Spirit Festival, which was amazing. Absolutely amazing experience. I just want to say a little bit about my experience. So, I'm a dancer, I'm a yogi, I love music, and drumming is like my favorite instrument. So it was everything that I love in one beautiful, seamlessly crafted class that really did flow. So often when things are synthesized like that, you can kind of feel there's a bit of this and a bit of that and then a bit of that, but it was just so beautifully integrated. And both of you fulfilling your parts, you as the facilitator and you as the musician, like holding the space and working that together. So thank you for that wonderful, uplifting, inspiring experience.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being part of that, allowing us to share.
Yeah, thank you. So of course the question I have, which I'm sure everyone would love to know, is how did this Afro Flow Yoga dance get created? Like, how did you create this? Start with you.
Wow. Well, it started from a real long journey of my background's in dance, and I trained at a place called Alvin Ailey in New York.
Right, okay.
And in 1991, I was introduced to yoga through my dance training. So yoga and dance have always been connected.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I met Jeff in '94, and my backgrounds, I'm Canadian, Jamaican, Scottish, Irish. And there's been a lot of healing, deep healing around identity. And so dance was a way to reconnect to my heart. As I was a young girl growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood.
Is that in Canada that you
This
grew
is
up?
in Canada, yeah. And so the dance was always the healing aspect of reconnecting. And then yoga was also the element of yoga. The practice of yoga helped reconnect to all levels of my being. And then I met my beautiful husband in 1994, who's a musician. I'll let you say. I mean, it's really a journey, so we'll start there.
Yeah.
Well, I come from a musical family. My father was a bass player. My mother was a colorist, soprano. They're both professionals. My grandmother was a organist and also a soprano that sang on the radio in the 30s. She was a mentor to Roland Hayes, Marian Anderson. My dad played for Billie Holiday, Sammy Davis Jr. My mother sang in a lot of professional events, and they also had other careers. So they were professionals in other areas. So, Mom, as far as my percussive start was at age 12. My dad's drummer gave me a set of bongos. Although I had been playing piano since age of six, taught by my grandmother. I ended up going on and being a bass player and singing. So I learned to sing and play at the same time. As both my parents had to kind of felt like I was almost competing. It's like, oh, well, if they're doing it, I have to do it too. So I've always played dance music.
Yeah.
So I've always facilitated that aspect of the synergy and making sure everybody's moving and doing what they have to do. And I've also been into audio and when we lived in New York for quite a few years, and I used to do sound for Alvin Ailey, at their studio before they bought this new fancy building that they have now on 55th Street. And so I was always kind of facilitating in the dance and percussion world. We went to Africa. I had purchased a djembe from Ghana. Don't buy something big in the beginning of a trip because you have to carry it around the whole trip. So, and then we did some work with a bunch of dance studios with Spring Step in Medford. We had these.
So were you performing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me, like professional dancer, professional musician?
Yeah. So when we met in '94, I was dancing professionally, and
Yeah.
Jeff was also an engineer on a sabbatical and traveling the world and doing a CD.
And we've collaborated. We did when we first got together. We did some hair shows for these high-end salons in Boston, and ended up doing things at the Waldorf Astoria, where I would write the music and Leslie would choreograph the dancers. So that was kind of one of our first projects, and then we ended up making 2 fitness DVDs together, where I did the music on those, and Leslie's almost a one-shot wonder. So we were able to get two DVDs out of one.
Core
so
strength and
so
core
lots,
power.
lots of collaborating
Yeah.
with music and dance, and I've been a musician playing dance music 30 plus years.
Well,
And so when we got married, we always collaborated here and there. But then our parents, we wanted to know more about our ancestry.
right.
So Jeff's parents both passed away within
In the mid 90s.
in the mid 90s, and then my dad passed away in 2005. And we both had such an interest in our roots, and because Jeff's family, being African American, they can trace the history back because they were considered inventory. Humans were.
When enslaved folks were brought over here, it's just like a bag of coffee, and the taxes paid, and the records go back to show, the tax, and then you can trace, people.
Yeah. And then my family, the only grandmother I knew was Scottish-Irish descent, and we can trace back to Dundee, Scotland. We have a book this thick with all our ancestors. But 3 of my Jamaican grandparents, because they died before I was born, the ancestry, a lot of the records got lost. They weren't like the U.S. where they documented everything. So after my father passed away, we decided to take a journey to West Africa. And we went to Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, and Benin. And we visited the slave castles. And the slave castles were big castles on the coast of West Africa where over 400 years people were enslaved, Africans were enslaved.
There are also forts.
Yeah.
With little churches in the top part, in the middle, ironically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we went there, we wanted to really go because it's like answering the prayers of your ancestors. If someone's been stolen from their home, the prayer is to come back home. So as we came back home and we were standing in the slave castles, it was like you could feel the energy, and it awoke like all this power. And then when we got back to the U.S., we were on a 2-year healing journey. I personally went through a big healing journey. As a woman, I was healing my womb because we were in this female slave dungeon, and there's like all the trauma, the collective trauma. So then Jeff and I we were consulting with shamans, a shaman from Zimbabwe and another shaman from Burkina Faso and a Voodoo priestess, and we went to Sacred Waterfall in Haiti and through Jamaica. So we did 2 years of deep, deep prayer and ritual, and that's how Afro Flow Yoga was born. Yeah.
That's then evident in what you're now offering. So, gosh, so many questions rise up out of what you've shared. I mean, first of all, speaking of your roots and that journey, the healing journey that you've made, I found it was just profoundly moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to gloss over that because that's a core part of what you really moved.
Mm-hmm. Well, it comes out in a lot of people get very emotional in the classes, and they have breakthroughs and turning points. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm going to ask you to speak about that a little bit, because you do incorporate this awareness into what you're offering. And it's beautiful because obviously this is your passion and something that you're called to, but there's no sense of anger or, you know, you could easily use it to create division and separation, but actually it felt to me like you're using this awareness of your identity and your roots to create cross-cultural connection.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
So can you
important.
just speak to that part of the
Yeah.
class?
Yeah,
'Cause
we
it's
do.
very
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah.
A lot of social impact. And I guess the first thing is that we're so happy that the music has been brought through us, because during the time when people were enslaved, that they wanted the slave masters tried to stop all the music. They took away the drums. They didn't want any singing. So they wanted to suppress that whole culture. It was like a stripping of the culture. So to be able to have it brought through the Caribbean, South America, and even in the United States. I mean, things have been retained, and they've gone back and forth and created this, the drumming and the healing, because there were so many rituals that were created by the drumming and the chanting for healing. So things were done, whether they were probably even in the cotton fields or different places where the music was retained. And here we are. It's just coming through us.
Yeah.
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 And the social impact, of course.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is speaking to the piece of the unity and the deep healing work that we personally have done to bring us to this journey. Afro Flow Yoga hasn't come necessarily just from a place of ego. It's come from spirit. So through the healing, it's a real honor and privilege to be open to spirit, to allow this energy to come. And it's out of love, and it's out of uniting, because like I came from a multicultural family. And so part of the healing journey for me was to be able to heal the slave and the master. So the oppressed and the oppressor, that actually lives within all of us.
Yeah.
So the anger piece, yes, I mean, when you learn the history, it's a lot to digest. And a lot of emotions come up, anger, fear, shame, all of these things. Yeah. And we all actually, when we're in touch, we embody it all. And so that's the healing process, and knowing that we are all connected at the root. Even though we're different and unique, can have a garden, you have a rose and you have a tulip. It's not the same, but it's connected and beautiful and unique. And so that's what we celebrate in Afro Flow Yoga. And so that's why it's so important for us to do this work. And with the drum is the heartbeat. And so we all have that heartbeat. And then the dance, like we talk about the planets. The planet is always in motion, and the galaxies are always in motion. So the cosmos are dancing. And then we have a friend who studied the sound of planets. Each planet has a vibration.
Yeah.
So that's where the healing comes, like the motion and the sound. And that's why it feels so natural. And then we bring in the elements of nature, so earth and the sky and the water and the air, the breath,
And playing different instruments and tones and different dynamic volumes. First starting out with the breath, of course, and kind of returning to the breath throughout the practice. So certain tones kind of have this organic, pleasant, calming effect. So it's all about that, and then of course the drums and the various dynamic aspects too. Because they can play certain rhythms, they just calm people, and then of course bring the fire.
Yeah.
So it's you know, the fire, the earth, you know, the air. I have the chimes, you know, the sounds, you know, that have this, because the wind chimes represent the, you know, the air. When you hear that, you feel like a nice day and the breeze is blowing. So it's the air and the breath and that. So the frequencies, everything, and tempo. So it's all combined to provide healing. Because I mean, so many, not just African people from the African diaspora have been traumatized. I mean, many people have been enslaved throughout history, and there's certain trauma, and even you know, this things are stuck in the body. I mean, you know, the oppression of women. You know, so a lot of these things, it's a freedom. Many people come to the class, and they may be in their 40s or 50s. They've raised children. They haven't really moved in years, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, I feel something that I recognize from many years ago, and they start moving, and you know, so and it brings out these things, because things are stuck because of people have been kind of controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a freedom, and there's a non-judgment. So when people finally feel like, oh, I don't have to, you know, look like I know what I'm doing, because I'm doing me, and I'm bringing my identity. You know, Leslie might show you certain things, but then you just have to do what you can and put your spin on it.
Yeah.
And there's an interaction between, so versus you go to a class, you hear the music, you know, they give you the marching orders. Here we synergize. So I watch how people dance, because we have like that the circle, the dance off kind of at one point.
Yeah.
It's almost like the old Soul Train on you know, American TV.
Yeah.
And when I see people come out and dance, I change, and I kind of go with what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So whatever they're doing, the beat's gonna. So that's the luxury of having live interactive music, and having a certain level. So it's hard for me to replace myself when it's time for me to, you know, if I can't be there, because people have to have multi-instrumental aspects, and just have the experience and the sensitivity.
Yeah, the attunement. I mean, obviously, and then there's the attunement between you guys as
Right.
well.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
everything
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
happening
Yes. Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
which after
Yeah.
21 years must be
Yeah.
pretty strong.
It's really healing,
Well,
actually.
23,
Yeah,
actually.
we've been married for 20 and a half years.
Yeah.
But for 23 years,
It
we've
just
been together.
Coming up on 23 years.
But what I find is the practice of Afro Flow Yoga, coming into ritual, coming into ceremony and circle, for us, it's very healing. So it doesn't matter if we're having some resistance in our relationship, which is natural, and then we go into practice, we come out, and it's healing.
Cleansed.
Yeah, it's shifted.
I
So it's so helpful.
I was looking some video footage that I had taken of what we did, and I don't know, I was starting to get up and move. I was like, oh yeah, you know, it's like.
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you ever feel like getting up and dancing yourself? Do you ever play the instruments yourself in terms of role switching?
Yeah, Leslie has her shaker out there. You know,
Yeah.
You know, shaking, exciting people.
Yeah.
And I'm already dancing. One of my favorite drummers, he actually, while he's playing, he looks like he's dancing. So in order to, I play, because I have the Indian bells on my feet, and you know, my arms are moving, and I'm usually like swaying when I'm playing anyway, so I'm already dancing.
Yeah.
I love dancing. I think I was 12 when I won $50 at a dance contest, so I can relate.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you as well, and you don't have to answer this, but you know, you talked about your journeys together and the healing that you've both gone through. So, like, I really honor you for that, for doing that. It's like a great service. I feel, you know, to much more than just you, because it's birthed this. In that time, as you were journeying and discovering, was there ever a point where whatever you were experiencing individually kind of made it difficult for you to relate, or was there always a capacity to be there for each other? Because I can imagine some of that's pretty deep
Mm-hmm.
Should we start?
Sure, sure, absolutely, absolutely. We were going through our individual healing journeys, and different times it was more intense for one of us and then the other, and that brings things up, and you cut through the layers.
Yeah.
I think what's really, really helped us in that were the rituals, because through that we have some various healers that we work with. We have a Voodoo priestess who's a dear friend. She's from Haiti. And anytime we'd feel like, "Rah," we go and have our reading with her, sit, and she was like guiding us. She still does. Like, it's helpful to have community and to have elders in the community who can help during these times. And then it's say, okay, well, Jeff, you go give tobacco to the tree. Leslie, you go pray and white and meditate for 5. We had our assignments.
A lot of these things
Yeah.
are related to
Yeah.
some indigenous practices, and whatever your spiritual background is, they're all kind of connected.
Yeah.
So
Have you
not
both always been spiritual people?
So I grew up Christian, in Anglican in Toronto, and for me, it was like the people who went to my church there were some kids in school who were racist, and they were the ones who were at my church. So I was like, I thought we were supposed to be a family. So I started seeking outside of the church probably as a teenager, and I had an aunt who was a clairvoyant and astrologist, and she was a metaphysicist. She taught us the power of creative visualization and the power of the mind and the meditation, and so I started going that way.
Yeah.
And when we met, I was actually fasting, and Jeff was fasting.
well, I had a sabbatical. I worked in electronic engineering and wireless communication. I've always done that. My dad was also into electronics and communication, even though was a well-known musician. So I've always been in the church. I used to, at when I was born, I used to sit below my grandmother. She would play a huge organ in a large church and play the kick pedals on the organ with the bass pedals, and had a huge choir. It was Methodist, and my parents met in her choir in Boston, and I went on and I ended up performing, working in church, working in a lot of churches as a bass player. So I've always done that, and I still do that. People call me, and I sub for other bass players in church, and so the spiritual part, yes, it's always been there, and having been a cancer survivor, these things always come up to a certain point, and my father passed away from cancer, and my mother had it, so a lot of these things bring you to the spiritual point, and you're being watched over because we all do silly things, so you have these angels that are ancestors also, that are keeping you from and guiding you on that spiritual journey.
You talked about the healing very much, and actually I didn't expect you to use that word so much, but it's true. And so I'm curious to know, like, when you get feedback for people who come to your class, what kind of feedback you get in terms of what they've experienced, what's changed for them,
Right. It's interesting. We have a big community back home, and recently we sat down and we did a fun little thing where people said what their stories were, how they came to Afro Flow Yoga. And it was so interesting because a lot of people came because they had broken hearts. And they wanted to just try something new. And they thought, oh, Afro Flow Yoga. They had no idea what it was. They just thought, oh, this is kind of out of my comfort zone. And they came, and we do a lot of work on the heart center.
And we recently worked with Harvard Divinity School. They contacted us, and there was a summit that they had, and it was innovators in, I guess in
Yes, spirituality.
yeah, that so a lot of people are seeking other connections to their spirituality or community.
Yeah.
It's about community. The church, when you go to church, the church is about community, and people have issues. So we have so many people that have met and have bonded and help each other now, and it's created this whole network of healing.
It's amazing. I was
Bonding.
looking on your website,
Uh-huh.
and so you're based in Boston.
Yes.
But now it seems like you're extending your reach so much more in terms of online trainings and workshops in other places around the world. So tell me a little bit now about what's happening for Afro Flow Yoga now and into the future, what your vision is, what's happening now.
Right. Well, there's so many layers to it, but I think the thing is that we really, the home base, the hub, the foundation is the healing. It's a healing of communities, of people, bringing people together. So we do a lot of work back home with communities, a lot of youth, communities, underserved communities, people who have had health disparities or don't have access to yoga. So we actually don't teach in a yoga studio.
Yeah.
We teach in different pockets of places so that people can come, and we have people from all walks of life, every color, shade, size, age, level. Everyone is welcome. And so that is the foundation. And then we have a teacher training program. So we have right now an instructor named Pauline, and she's teaching our classes at Alvanelli in New York and Connecticut and Brooklyn. And then we just trained 5 other people. And we like to do it in a way where it's like we're spending time with them. And so that it's like there's so much rush these days. It's like, I got to get a teacher training, and here's spend a weekend with us, and then go give us some money and go do it on your own. But that's not what we want to do. It's about family. It's about community. It's about supporting people to shine. Yeah.
Holding a safe place.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people who are traumatized, especially now.
Yeah.
Particularly with the political climate.
Yeah.
In the States, a lot of young people are like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a lot of people who are, and they're alone. Because people we have a lot of people that come from, to Boston to go to school, and they don't know anybody. They can't make friends because Boston isn't really the most friendly place to meet people. So when they come to our class, all of a sudden they find, oh, hey, this looks like my tribe.
Yeah. They find love, they find joy, they find community, and then
and we where we hold most of our classes is a facility that has all forms of dance. We've traveled different places in Africa, and then we've realized that our home base, it's called the dance complex. So we're a yoga dance in a dance complex versus being in a yoga scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also do a lot of work right now with racial healing. So we've been working with a woman who discovered her family. They were the largest slave traders in America, and so with that comes
out of Bristol, Rhode Island.
Comes a lot of. Her name's Katrina Brown, and out of that came a lot of shame and fear and guilt, and so she's done a lot of work. She did a film called Traces of the Trade, a story from the Deep North. And so we've been collaborating with people because there is such a divide, but it's such an illusion that we're divided. It's like that we're separate. And so so when people come to Afro Flow Yoga, they're so excited to feel welcome. And that's the thing. There's a beautiful song in West Africa called Fanga Lafia, which is like a welcoming song. It's like a heart opening. And there's Ubuntu. It's like I am you, you are me. It's like all of these principles we bring in to the circle and expand the circle. So we visualize many circles all around the world, and not just the inclusion. It's not just this is this segment, this is that segment. It's about the circle, and that's the divine feminine we're bringing and having the drums like the masculine. We have the feminine, masculine energies. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're just beautifully representing and embodying that in such an authentic way. It's
Oh,
just so
thank you.
evident, you know, you're just radiant.
Oh, thank you.
Radiant.
Thank you.
And you're just there holding
Mhm.
space right there. It's just beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you have a parting message for our viewers in terms of, you know, your mission, your passion, or something that you really love everyone to hear?
Wow.
Love is the answer.
Like Bob Marley says, one love. Yeah.
Beautiful. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you guys?
We have a website, afroflowyoga.com, AFRO, flow, like the water.
FLOW
Yoga.com.
.com.
And then we're also on Instagram and Facebook, and so all the social medias, Twitter. Yeah. Yeah.
I am sure many people will now be in touch with you. Because your message is just so amazing and inspiring.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shakti.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much to Leslie and Jeff for this incredible interview. We went places I really didn't expect us to go, and that's always the gift of this for me. And thank you so much for watching. Join me again next time on Heart to Heart with me, Shakti Sundari.